Hello and welcome to the Final Frontiersmen, a YouTube channel about all things Trek with a heavy focus on the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. Today I am joined with a special guest, the first repeat guest to the channel, Al Spader. Thank you very much for coming back. It's good to say coming back too. Welcome back to the channel.
Hey, Bill, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat some Star Trek with you today.
Yeah, I am so thrilled to have you back here. And there's a number of reasons why you're back here, but one gigantic reason. But before we jump into any questions and that, would you just like to remind the viewers who you are as if they need a reminder?
Yeah, I'm Al Spader. I'm a freelance RPG writer. I've been working with Modiphius on the Star Trek Adventures line for about 3 years now. I've also published my own game called Sentience 2D20, which is the last time that I was on here with Bill. But most importantly, I am now a lead writer
Yeah.
of the Federation Klingon War Tactical Campaign, which is the new book that's going to be hopefully coming out here in the next month or so.
Yeah, that is the big one. That is it. Well, first of all, again, I do not want to diminish how amazing it is, your Sentience role-playing game. We talked about that last time. If you did not watch that video, I do recommend you go back and watch the interview and also the review about the role-playing game. It's another awesome 2D20 system, just like Star Trek Adventures. Love the theme, love the setting. And after we finished that interview, it was just after it went up or just before it went up, that's when your first source book was released, your first what is it, mission or like
Oh
adventure
yeah,
compendium?
Tales from the Awakening. It's four
Yes.
adventures for sentience. Yep.
So yeah, that's growing too. That's going well. There's still a lot of people talking about it online. So I'm so happy every time I see Sentience mentioned when I'm going through the social media. So congratulations on that. And
Thanks.
we're going to have to talk more about that in the future. But we do have a main topic to get into today. As you said, you're a lead writer now on the latest book, a book which is getting a lot of attention. And I want to say Jim Johnson was on the channel just a week or two ago. I don't know, time just slips by, and I told him about the Captain's Log solo role playing game for Star Trek Adventures. Ever since that came out, the two videos I did for Captain's Log have been dominating in the top three watch videos every week. Uh, but the recent review I did for the Klingon or the Federation-Klingon War Tactical Campaign that you are the lead writer on, that got hit hard in the view count. I mean, people are diving into that far more intensely than any recent video I've put out since Captain's Log. So I think that's a really good sign. How has the reaction been online so far?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. Like, I was a little bit worried about it because we were doing something completely new. I mean, just like Captain's Log was something completely
Yeah.
new. And, so many Star Trek adventures players are very focused on narrative play and things like that. That coming in with a book that is adds a lot of crunch to the game
Mm.
and adds another dimension to the game. I was a little bit nervous about how people would accept it, but it's like Modiphius' Star Trek line has earned such a respect among its players
Mm.
that they're like, wait a minute, let's give this a check. Like, let's check this out.
Yeah.
Uh, sure, it's set during the Discovery era, which is very polarizing among Star Trek fans.
We know.
But even people who don't care for Star Trek Discovery
Mm.
are saying picking up this book and loving it. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, I guess before I get into the questions, I want to ask you about the book and also your work on the book. For those who did not want to sit through my long-winded 1 hour long explanation of what your book is, can you tell everyone what is the tactical campaign and why is it something that honestly is new to Star Trek Adventures? It's unlike anything that's been released this or thus far. So can you please
Sure.
explain what that
So
is?
there's basically two parts to the campaign booklet that I think appeal to a lot of players. And the first is like those character options. And we set out right from early on to say this is a book about war and how to role play a war. Period. We kind of tackled the first couple chapters of the book being applicable to any timeline, any war, anything, and how that would impact your character. Right? How do the moments of war change you? Then the second half, we knew that we wanted to do a campaign with a story, but we also wanted to add something more. So we created this, what we call tactical overlay, which is almost like a board game
Yeah.
that happens in between sessions that you role play. It's very similar to Band of Blades has a strategy phase, and I learned this week that Pathfinder's Kingmaker has something similar, where
Oh, I didn't know that.
characters go out and develop their kingdoms as like this higher, scale play. So essentially, you get to role play a scenario, and then you zoom out and you take on the role of admirals who are dealing with the war across the galaxy and assigning assets to deal with them.
Yeah, that was cool. I think that's what grabbed me the most because I am, as much as a role player, I am an avid board gamer. And when I was reading the rules, there were a lot of familiar board game elements from like modern board games that I saw. Like the way, for example, there are some military problems that pop up, like you have hotspots popping up on this tactical overlay, and those grow in intensity if they're not taken care of, which is similar to games like in the Pandemic family, where it's like you're goes from level 1, level 2, level 3, and then if you don't stop level 3, it pops and things get worse. And there were so many familiar things like that that I think that's what excited me a lot about it. It's like I can play a board game and role play at the same time. That was a nice juxtaposition there. So whose idea was it? Did they come to you with the idea of we want to do a tactical overlay type thing, or did you pitch that?
So when Jim decided he wanted to try the lead writer experiment with myself and Michael Dismuke,
Mhm.
we had two books presented to us at the same time.
Mhm.
One of them was Captain's Log. One of them was just the campaign overlay for a
Oh,
war type campaign.
okay.
That was actually developed by Ivan Sorensen,
Hmm.
who worked on 5 Parsecs from Home and 5 Leagues from the
Oh,
Borderlands.
okay.
So he actually developed the framework, the skeleton of what that looked like. And me being the person that loves mechanics,
Mm.
that drew me right into
Yeah.
that section. And Michael being the person who loves story and character driven stuff was pulled right into the solo play. So it like fit our personalities and our gaming like experiences quite well. So I saw that framework and I'm like, all right, well, let me take this because Ivan didn't really know much about Star Trek. He
Mm.
said, how can we take this and make it feel Trek?
Yeah.
So he and Nathan Dowdell did a few play tests and then sent it to us. We streamlined it quite a bit and made it feel very Trekky
Mm.
after about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months of play testing. And then we moved on to actually developing the rest of the book.
Oh wow. Wow. So it started with the tactical overlay basically as the key concept for it. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
So as a, well, let me just ask, since this was your first time as a lead writer, what exactly did that mean for you? I mean, what kind of responsibilities did you have as opposed to just working on the book? Because there are, as you said, there's other writers, there's other people contributing to the book as well. So what did you have to do in your first Modiphius lead writer position?
So it was all about, first of all, creating the outline for the
Okay.
book and having the overall vision.
Mm.
I knew that I had about 10 or 11 writers that I'd be working with closely.
Mm.
And I shared the outline with each of them. They kind of highlighted sections that they thought would be interesting or things that they could add to that section. And then together we started talking about, okay, now let's say what the role playing is going to be. We know that there's going to be 6 missions. We know that there's going to be 24 mission briefs. Who wants to take what? And then somebody's like, well, I have an idea for this mission. And then I have I'll take 5 mission briefs and so on and so forth. It was that was quite a cool experience getting everyone connected.
Mm.
And then after that, it was people would turn their work into me. And then I had to lay it out in a manuscript. And that was the part that was really, really challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in your review, you mentioned how in the game master section of the book, we kind of start introducing elements of the tactical overlay
Mm.
before we introduce the tactical overlay at all. And that was a really hard decision to make. Where do we put that? How do we make it all jive, et cetera, et cetera?
Hmm. Yeah, and I do want to apologize. Every time I listen to review, I think that sounds more complainy than I want it to be. But yeah, like you said, in that chapter when I'm reading, you do mention a lot of these elements, but those elements don't get explained until the following chapter. But as I said in the review, as much as I was thinking the first time around, like I wish I knew what it was in detail first. I By the time I got to the next chapter and it explained, it made sense why you introduced the concept in the previous chapter and then you fleshed it out later, because that's when it became important to know those finer details. And then it's in your memory already from the previous chapter. It's like, oh, okay, well, that all comes full circle now. That makes sense. I understand what they're talking about 100% now. So
I
it.
mean, you're a teacher, so you know that you want to front load information, right? You want to
Mm.
front load language, you want to front load that type of stuff, so that people have at least an exposure to it, and then we drill down and apply it in the next chapter. So that's kind of where I ended up settling on that whole thing. And I don't think you sounded complaining at all. I think it's a very good observation that you are going to hear point of interest in the game master chapter, but you're not going to learn what a point of interest
Yeah.
is until chapter 3, the campaign rules.
Yes. So yeah, I think it worked out. So yeah, I'm glad you didn't take it as complaint. When I was talking about it, like I sound like I'm whining here, but yeah, I want to make sure like it works. It does the job it was meant to do. So when they brought the project to you, you mentioned already, like, of course, this setting, because it's in the Federation-Klingon War Discovery, which is the most recent war depicted on Star Trek TV. It's in the current series of Trek. When they brought the project to you, was it always going to be a Discovery era? Uh, Not even base book, but the campaign at least is designed as Discovery era, which of course, like everything, it's adjustable to any era you want. But for the sake of the book itself, was that always Discovery era, or did that come up later in the process?
Yeah, I think that the development team wanted to have another Discovery book. It was
Mm,
one of the most searched Star Trek terms
mm.
at the time. And it was this when we started working on this, Strange New Worlds hadn't come out yet.
Oh
I
wow.
think we might have been on Discovery season 3.
Mm-hmm.
But it was over 2 years ago. So they wanted to have another Discovery supplement to kind of appeal to newer players.
Mm.
And then at the same time, we started talking about, well, Discovery is not even here for a majority of this war. So now it's really not even about Discovery. Now it's
Yeah.
about the character ship. And that was the part that we really doubled down on, was like, how does your ship become the hero of this story?
Yeah, and I think that's the one part that I think a lot of people like when you said it's contentious Discovery. There's a lot of people that have strong feelings one way or the other. Uh, some people seem to think when they see campaign, they think they're playing Discovery. They're playing on the USS Discovery, but it's like you said, your character, just like any Star Trek Adventures campaign you make, your character, your ship, that's the star. And the fact that Discovery introduced this war, and we get to see, here's clearly where the war begins, here's clearly where the war ends, but we don't really get the middle details because Discovery disappears. So your ship gets to be the one who makes up those stories that flesh out everything from the known beginning to the known end. I thought that was a great idea because I know a lot of people wanted and are constantly talking about like Dominion War. But there's already the major moments of the war are all pretty well logged on TV. And unless you're rewriting history, which is fair to do in a role playing game, like your ship was not the one that was the hero in that. So, I mean, while there's still plenty of room to make your own stories in that, I think the Federation Klingon War is ripe for just easily slipping your characters and your ship into canon without it having to break or bend anything that's seen on TV. So I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, and we included options in the overlay of how to make your own assets,
Mm,
how to adjust the stages of the war, things like that, so that you could just take that tactical overlay and place it on top of the Dominion War and tell
yeah.
whatever story you want to tell. I would argue that even the missions that are included in the campaign, you pull out the word Klingon,
Yeah.
you change the name of the starbase, and you put in, Dominion. Like, you could probably even just use the adventures for the Dominion War as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't take much really for any Star Trek Adventures book to just easily just swap it, change it, put it into whatever era that you want. So I don't think people would have difficulty if they tried. I want to get into a couple of the finer points in the system, but before I mention them specifically, I want to ask you, what are some of the new elements in this book, especially that you are excited about and you're excited to introduce into Star Trek Adventures?
I'm really excited with the list of new playable species
Oh
that we
yeah,
came
yeah,
up
yeah,
with,
yeah,
right? Because they're just so different, like
yeah,
their body types, their facial structures, they're very different. So I can't wait to see some of those on people's ships.
yeah.
And then of course the scars mechanic, I think
Yes.
is intriguing,
Mm,
having that permanent complication attached to your character.
mhm.
So many stories that you can tell using that.
Yeah,
I think that system is going to be really cool. And then a lot of the little optional systems, I would love to hear people report back on.
yeah,
Like, are you rolling for initiative?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we
yeah.
provided as an option. The power management system, I think, is my favorite thing in the entire book. And that was just an afternoon of me playing around and looking at a character sheet, trying to figure out, could we make this happen? And it seemed to work out pretty well.
Yeah, the power management's definitely one of the points I did want to bring up here. Again, it calls back to some board gamey things that I loved. I have a game here. I don't know, and I know there's plenty of other similar games, but the one I play and I liked, it's called Space Cadets. Do you know of it?
Not familiar with it.
It's very much like a almost a satirical Star Trek copy where all the players in the game, you take on a station, you have a mission to do, but you have a timer, everyone's doing their thing simultaneously, but they have, so it's like you're plotting the course, you're generating power, you're running sensor scans, and there's one player as the captain, almost like the GM, who's trying to coordinate everyone within this very short time frame to get what they need done. And one of them is the engineers generating power that they need for each of the different systems. And that's kind of what this reminded me of, that you give that control to the engineer or ops officer, whoever it is on the ship, that they are playing this balancing act of where to shift the power, where to put the power when the red alert comes. And then as the situation changes, like probably another system is going to need power that wasn't given it initially, or power is going to be drained from one system because it's being used a lot, probably weapons or something of that if it's a battle. So then the engineer has to think, okay, where can I take power from, how can I get power back? I love how alive that department, whether it's engineering, ops, whoever's going to be in charge of it, how alive that department will become with this option. Did something inspire you to test it out, or was it just an idea in the back of your head?
I had seen a lot of people talking on Facebook, saying, I don't know what my engineer can do aside from
Mm,
deal with shields.
yeah,
Um, and like, I'm not on the bridge, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I mean, power is a thing, but
mm,
it's kind of like abstract. Like, can we make it a little bit crunchier
yeah,
so that one department can have a little bit more um, things to do when it does come to space combat. The other little thing that's in that rule set that I love is that even if a station or has no power, like if it's offline, I think
Yeah,
is the term
yeah,
that we
yeah,
use,
yeah,
is that you can still make
yeah.
those tasks, but the complication range is increased because you're stealing
Yeah.
little bits of power from other stations around you just to
Yes.
make it happen, you know?
Yeah.
So I really liked that part of it as well. I
And the
think
ship
Ollier mentioned
doesn't
that.
assist either, correct? So the
Right,
ship
right,
doesn't
correct.
assist. So you still do the role, but the ship no longer helps you in it. And the complication rate, I thought, yeah, that makes so much sense. And then you roll complication. It's like, oh, you took too much power out of this system, so that gets blown
Right.
out. Like, oh my God. So yeah, that's so cool. That's one, like I said, I unfortunately, as I mentioned in my review of the book, just currently where my campaign is with my players, and the fact that we get like maybe one session a month at the rate we're going, it's like
Uh-huh.
I don't foresee in the near future being able to run a full tactical war campaign, or tactical campaign, I guess you should call it. But these little optional rules, especially the power management, that's just easy that you could plug into any game, whether you're doing a tactical war or not. So I'm very eager to start using this in my games anytime they're at red alert.
Yeah, I think that like, if you're stuck in a black hole and you're keeping track of power, this is one system that will be or that would be really, really fun to implement, I think.
Yeah, that's really cool. The other one you just mentioned as well, and I have it in my notes, I would like to talk about too. I love let me just say the system itself that you have implemented with the scars and the trauma, and also related with that the casualty reports. I love how that is a major part of the tactical campaign, because not only does it add a new mechanical element into the game, it adds especially with the casualty reports, it adds a very narrative element, and it also highlights the fact that war is not fun. War, I mean, I think a lot of games, video games, board games, role-playing games, jump into the action and the excitement of war without really acknowledging the fact that it's the most horrific thing that humanity has ever done, and the worst things stem from it, and the game acknowledges that. Can you go into a little more detail about the whole trauma system, and like where did this come from to put into this campaign?
So the first bit of writing I saw for the book came from Michael Duxbury,
Mm,
and it was the trauma system.
mm,
And that really put in my head that yes, it's going to be fun to create crunchiness and to go pew pew, but to focus on the character um, effects or implications, I think that chapter got me in the mindset of this is what we want to deliver. We want to make this keep this about characters, keep it about people. The fact that you have to name who died in, when you lose a person of your crew, I think that's really, really important,
yeah.
right? I mean, casualty reports were in, I think, the game master's guide or the player's guide,
Mm,
where you rolled to see how many people died. But
yeah.
the part where you must name them, that came in this book, and so I think that brings the crew together quite a bit. Again, traits are a great way to tell stories with your characters, and having that permanent scar on you really informs you on how to role play when you're in a given scene,
Mm,
but it also gives the GM some things that they can reference when they're trying to put you into situations and things like that. So
mm.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, and even with scars, very similar to in your sentience game with your oh, the term just slipped me. I had it in my head with the values, the canceled values. What was
Oh, the
it?
value
Value
sacrifice.
sacrifice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is another way that values start to be these negative anti-values basically begin to turn against your character, and it's a way that, if left unchecked, could remove your character from the campaign permanently. It's not death per se, but it's something that eliminates them. And like you saw that in your sentience game, and now it's possible a similar fate could befall the characters who experience too much trauma through the war or whatever their experiences may be now in Star Trek Adventures. So I thought having all this in, because it does reflect what we see because of the war, the Federation-Klingon War, the Dominion War. We have the in Deep Space Nine, the great episode with Nog trying to deal with the fact he lost his leg, and like not just the physical scars of it, but the psychological scars that were left on him. Same in Strange New Worlds, we see with Mbenga and Nurse Chapel, what they experience in the Klingon War is still haunting them to this day, and Ortegas too. Like everybody has changed because of war, and now it's built in, and like you said, it changes the characters permanently and gives the player and the GM a lot to work with.
Yeah, we were thinking about Cisco front and center from the first episode of Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah.
Watching his wife die during the Dominion War. And so that was kind of at the front of our minds because at that time, Strange New Worlds hadn't come out yet. So we didn't realize that they were going to start, like, that was kind of like a happy accident that they started digging into Mbenga and Chapel and showing the scars that they have. And even to a lesser degree, Todd Stashwick's character in Picard season 3 also has, some scarring from dealing with the Borg. So, it's it's front and center, and it seems like new Star Trek is willing to admit that and willing to explore what that means to the characters. So that's pretty awesome.
I just wonder if there's any special talent a character can take that clearly Chief O'Brien has, that he probably has a half dozen scars and he's still going. Because this guy, like every other day, he's put through the ringer.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And then he has to go and fix the food replicators that still aren't working.
Yeah. So I mean it's a lame joke here, making light of it, but I mean we do see characters like they're carrying these, sometimes not visible, sometimes it's internal, these scars with them, and it changes who they are. And I love how it affects in a similar way the values, how it might prevent you from doing something, or it might put you in a position where you have to basically re-traumatize yourself in order to get through it. And I think that's pretty true to life. I mean, anybody who's experienced like a traumatic event knows what it's like when that gets triggered. So the fact that it's in the game leads to another thing that I think the book does very well. And also, was it maybe the first time it's appeared in the Star Trek Adventures book, but the kind of checklist in the back, or the guide, I wish I would wrote down what it's called.
The safety checklist.
Thank you very much. Oh
yeah.
My
so
God.
There's actually page 1, I believe, or page 2. After we have the table of contents, we have the content warning, which is the first time that's appeared in a Star Trek Adventures book, because we wanted to be very upfront that this is serious stuff. Like, this is something that you must talk about with your group. And then Allison Saib put together some safety mechanics that you can use and kind of Star Trek-ize them a bit. But yes, we have that safety checklist in the back of the book that ideally when you start this campaign, you give out to everyone at session 0, and they say, no, I don't want to see slavery. No, I don't want to be mindless. It's okay to have hand-to-hand combat. It's not okay to see torture, like things like that, because we are talking about a barbaric race, a barbaric species in the Klingons that do some pretty crazy stuff, trying to get ahead in the war. So.
No, I think it's a great idea, having that, and I like the way the checklist is laid out, and I love how it has like, this is a red alert for me, and like players can just fill that out, give it to you, and as a GM, you know exactly where you can take this campaign, what is and isn't within the limits that your players are comfortable with, because it's heavy stuff, like you said, it's heavy stuff, but it's important stuff. And again, I give kudos to this book for not shying away from how serious the content is and embracing it to whichever degree your group is comfortable with it. So I like the fact that it's set up the way it is.
So,
Have you?
so can we
Yes,
can we dig into that just a little bit deeper?
yes, please.
So we have full speed ahead,
Mm,
which is basically anything goes. I'm fine with interacting with this with
mm,
my characters. I'm fine with seeing it. I'm fine with role playing it. Then we have yellow alert, which is like I'm okay with this stuff happening if
mm,
it's off screen, right?
mm,
I don't want to actually role play through it, but if we're talking about it in the narrative, that's okay. I can deal with that.
mm,
And then we have, our red alert is um, like we I don't want to talk about this at
mm.
all. I don't This is not fun to me.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be part of my play experience. And then on top of that, we also talk about the full stop card,
Mm,
which is if you're ever in the middle of a scene and something becomes uncomfortable that maybe you didn't foresee as becoming uncomfortable, you say full stop, and then you move on to the next scene.
yeah.
Let your GM that you want to come to a full stop. This is making me uncomfortable. I need a break. I need a breather.
Mm.
Can we just move on to the next scene, please?
Yeah, and that's really important to have. And I think it's important that GMs establish in the session zero, or at least before play begins, uh player to remind their players that this exists, and they should not feel uh uneasy about bringing it up. Like, let them know that this full stop exists, and if you start feeling like this is way too much for you, don't don't hesitate, don't be shy, don't think you're breaking the mood of anything. This is designed to make sure you and everyone feels safe, because and it says in the book itself, when it's discussing this whole trauma system, everything, it's still a game. Everyone's there to play, to have fun, not to be traumatized on their own. So if you're ever, and it doesn't have to be a Star Trek campaign, like any player watching this, if you're ever in game and anything is making you feel uncomfortable, you should never feel like you can't speak up in the moment and have that stop right there. I mean, that's your right
Absolutely.
as a player. And same for GMs too. A lot of GMs, if you ever go on like the RPG horror story Reddits, you'll see that there's a lot of GMs that get put in a similar position, that they feel they can't speak up because their players are kind of getting a little out of hand. But no, if anyone's doing something that you are uncomfortable with, no matter what side of the table you're on, yeah, like Al said, full stop, bring it to a halt, move on to a different scene, right?
Absolutely.
Hopefully. But yeah, aside from the heavy stuff, though, aside from the heavy stuff, there's still a lot of cool elements in here. I love the assets in the game. I love how you're moving these little pieces. It could be a character, and I enjoy the fact that because it's Federation-Klingon War, it's all these well-known, famous characters of that era, not just the ones that appeared in Discovery, but of that era, TOS, Strange New Worlds, that timeline, Star Trek ships as well. So I have you thought of anything like a like any kind of visual representation, like 3D, like moving little miniatures on the board? Like, how do you do when you play test?
So the thing that we did when we play tested was just as simple as putting glass stones on the map.
Okay.
We included the map on the front inside cover of
Mm,
the book, that can be used for that. So like this is point, and we just would dry erase marker, write point of interest one,
mm,
set it down, and things like that. That was as far as we got with the play test. I'm sure that people that have ships and miniatures can go pretty crazy with it.
yeah.
I would have loved to have been able to do like a box set with a big cloth
Oh,
map, but
yeah.
all that stuff's so expensive these days
Oh,
that
yeah.
it wasn't in budget. But there's now two different sets of asset cards that have been
Mm,
put up on continuing mission.
yeah.
One that I made, which has a few errors in it, I found, that I need to update. And then somebody else on Reddit just posted some really cool abstract ones as well. So if you need help with that, like if you want to actually have physical copies of your assets, you can absolutely download them from continuing mission and print them off.
Yeah, I'll put a link to that page on continuing mission in the description of the video too, because I saw when they were
Perfect.
posted on Facebook and I thought those were awesome. And I think also you're currently you're running a Discord channel, taking a group of people through what the tactical campaign looks like, and you're using those cards, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because Discord's such an interesting beast in forums in general if you look to do like a play by post campaign. So one of the things I wanted to do was to just guide people through what do the turns look like,
Mm.
what do the momentum spends look like, things like that. And I'm getting feedback from different players saying, "Oh, well, we should send Kirk to this point of interest," et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, we've got a channel that's all of our assets, and so I just put the image
Yeah.
of the card in that channel so everybody can see all of our assets, and then we can have a discussion about where they go. So it's been pretty fun. We finished stage one last night. And stage two is set. There's some people discussing what we need to do. Stage two is going to be rough. We're on turn one, and we got some like difficulty 4 stuff out there, so
Yeah,
it's gonna be rough.
I took a peek this morning into there to see, and like things are looking pretty tough for them. So yeah, I like you're putting the write up also on the Facebook group to show like basically what happens. So people who are not joining on Discord and anyone watching here, if you join the Facebook group, you can find this post and read about it as well. So it's looking cool. I keep peeking in every now and then just to see how things are going, and just to also give me an idea of what it looks like. So also the thing is that you could, like you're doing right now in Discord, you could just play the tactical overlay as its own game.
Yes.
You don't even have to do the role playing element. I mean, or like I even mentioned in the interview, you could just role play being those admirals around the table, ordering these ships, these assets to go wherever they are. So it could be its own game as much as Star Trek Adventures is its own game.
Yeah, when I so after we finalized everything, we did another play test, and I did it with a couple of the people from the Pioneer group, and
Mm.
that's what we did. We each created admiral characters that were in charge of different parts of the fleet, and we role played the tactical campaign as those admirals. So that was a lot of fun as well.
That's cool. That is awesome. Yeah, I love the options. That's actually maybe a way that I can play the tactical campaign, but not with the current group that I have, because just, make it like a board game. Have a board game night where we're the admirals and we are conducting this war. So
One
I'm
of the things
just,
I'd love to
yeah.
do is now
Oh.
imagine this. If you're doing that and you don't have a group with you and you want to do like a solo playthrough of the tactical
Mm.
overlay, when you're assigning your assets to the points of interest, have those assets become your point of view character in a captain's logs session.
Oh, that's nice. That is
And
cool.
then do a
Yeah.
little captain's log for each one of the points of interest.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea.
I think that'd be
Oh,
cool to see.
yeah. And then, like, because, like, normally in the game, your group would take one point of interest to be like your zoom in and you're role playing the mission in that point of interest. But for a captain's log, yeah, you could make a log, you could do a log for every single point if you wanted to.
Yep.
That is cool. Yeah, I love that idea. Yeah. Have you tried that, or did you say that
I
that's just
have
one of
not
your?
tried that yet. It's
Oh,
just something that I've been thinking about, like how
yeah.
could you make that work?
Yeah, no, that
And I think it'd be
works.
really
Oh, I think that'd be great. Yeah, and then and then also the admirals who are sending out all the assets there. That's a different captain's log. That's the admiral's log there as
yep.
you're role playing through that. Oh, good idea. Oh, I love
Layers on
that.
layers on layers,
Layers on
right?
layers. Oh my god, yeah, it's like an onion of creativity in here. I love that. Speaking of other ways to play or other things, is there anything on the cutting room floor that didn't get in but you wanted to have?
I mean, so there was a time there when we were play testing um, an AI Klingon admiral that was trying to play against you.
Okay.
We just ran out of time. We had to get into production, so we didn't have time to get those rules in.
Interesting.
Yeah, we didn't really get it to work and get balanced at all. It was just something that we play tested once or twice.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that was happening. So like basically that admiral was traveling from point of interest to point of interest,
Yeah.
trying to foil what you're doing, making things more challenging. So that didn't make it in. We didn't actually really get a final vision on what that would even look like.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think I got in. Oh, and then I was even able to add new things later on. Um, like, for example, I realized that the swarms of ships
Mm.
entry that I had originally made for Utopia Planitia didn't make it into Utopia Planitia. So I was like, we need to get it in
Oh,
here.
perfect
Um,
timing.
right, right. So if you go into chapter 7 or whatever it is where there's ships,
Mm-hmm.
right at the beginning, it's like if you want to play a species who swarm their enemy with smaller ships, here are the rules to make those
Yeah.
viable. So that was cool to get in there. Um, I really wanted to be able to edit Mabenga's character asset
Uh,
after season 2 dropped, but it was already off to the printer at that
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Didn't have a chance to do that.
Well, that I think that would be a easy update could put on continuing mission.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to update their Mbenga stats.
Yeah.
Oh, that yeah. No, there's so much I love about the book. It honestly took me by surprise because I know you mentioned months ago like you're working on this big project, like, but I have no idea what the project is. I'm like, oh, that's cool. There's gonna be another cool Star Trek Adventures book out. And then when I saw Federation-Klingon War Tactical Campaign, and then that's Al's book, and like, what is this? Is completely caught me by surprise. It's unlike anything in Star Trek Adventures up till now, and it fits in perfectly. It's a great addition to it. I'm just speechless looking at this.
I was actually going through and I was looking like as we were in development, I was looking through Starfleet battles.
Mm.
I was watching the FASA tactical
Oh
simulator
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
that's on YouTube. Like, and I wanted to harken back to that type of perspective because I know that there is a sizable percentage of the STA player base that likes the tactical aspect, that likes the military
yeah.
aspect of Starfleet. Like that's something that they've had since the 80s. And
Mm.
so I wanted to try to make something that would reach out to them and maybe bring some of them on board as well. And it sounds like that there are a lot of people checking out this book who never would have before, but they loved FASA so much
Yeah.
that they want to come in and check this out. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it definitely speaks to many different groups in the gaming community, not just the ones who were already enamored with Star Trek Adventures, but like you said, there's a lot of people who want the crunch. This book surprisingly adds a lot of options for crunch that so far have been omitted from Star Trek Adventures, and I think that's going to satisfy those players who are always talking about home brewing their own games to put in more crunchiness because they prefer that over the more abstract narrative view, especially when it comes to battle. So I think the fact that this works so well as a crunchy tactical system while you're still doing the free narrative role play, it seems almost impossible that you could get it to work. But when you read through the book, it's like, yeah, this makes 100% perfect sense how this fits in, and nothing breaks in the system at all. Like it's really a genius work. And also as of today, as of maybe 12 hours ago, when I'm reading on Discord or Facebook, whatever it is, according to Jim Johnson, the final major release for first edition Star Trek Adventures, and we discussed before the video started, are we going to bring up second edition? And it's like, yeah, we're at that time now.
Let's do it.
Let's just talk now. Of course, there's not much we can say now because it's just been announced. I mean, the details are not released yet, but Star Trek Adventure Second Edition, and you are a part of that too, sir. Please, tell me what you can about your work on that.
So yeah, I did
Yeah.
write some stuff for the core rulebook, and I was on the playtesting team
Hmm.
for, I think we playtested for about 3 months of the mechanics, because Nathan put all the mechanics together, and they had a UK playtest team, and then they
Hmm.
had a stateside playtest team. So a bunch of us writers were able to sit down and really try to hack the system, so to speak. So that was really fun to see and be a part of. And yeah, I think that the fact that it is not a purely Starfleet focused book,
Yeah.
I think is going to be cool. Like that you can be any species to start with, or any a vast number of species, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
to start with. Unlike the first edition, where it was, here's Starfleet, here is the date. It's 2371, and go.
Yeah.
Now we're opening it up so much more. I mean, as you saw from that beautiful cover image,
Oh yeah,
you've
yeah.
got every era uniform on there.
Right? Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't clear from that image that this is a more broad, open starting point for Star Trek Adventures, then I think they're going. The players and the new incoming players are going to be pleasantly surprised. The players in my group, too, just today, I think they finally picked up that second edition's coming, and there's messages coming in like, "Oh, does that mean I can make a Cardassian from the start? Does that mean I could like it looks like this is going to be an open point for everything." So yeah,
Yeah, the only
it's
other thing that they really mentioned in the press release, I'm trying to remember, was that their goal is to have it release at Gen Con.
yeah,
If you're going to release anything, you release it at Gen Con.
that makes sense.
So that'll be nice. And yeah, I think that they put up a website that you can put your email in, and as soon as updates come out, you'll be emailed and notified immediately. But it's still a ways off. We just wanted
Mm.
to start teasing it out so that people can start preparing and whatnot. Oh, they did say that it is compatible with first edition. So
Yes.
to what degree and whatnot remains to be seen,
Mm.
and all that fun stuff. But I'm excited uh, with what we play tested. So
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and like the next few months are probably going to be extremely exciting as more and more information comes out. So, I think, as you can see here, listening to Al, there's not much he can say right now, and there's not much that is being said right now. But there's a lot of speculation going around social media. There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of people guessing at things, and there's a lot of people hearing the guesses and thinking that is fact and starting to repeat it. And so there's a lot of like wires getting crossed. So I think signing up for that Modiphius newsletter would be your best bet to make sure you're getting the accurate information as soon as it's released. So like Al said, there's a website for that. I'll put that in the description as well. So just don't listen to like the negative naysayers who might be saying like, oh, I heard it has this. If it hasn't come through the official source yet, don't believe it yet, right?
let's just say that just here to my left is my board cube, and every single book for the line. I'm not getting rid of them. So I think the adaptability will be there,
Perfect.
and I think people will be excited to see what we put forth.
And I know I'm going to be one of them. I'm desperately waiting for more information. uh, Before we go, what else are you doing these days? What else are you into? Is there anything more coming up with Sentience? Are you too busy with more STA projects? What is the future of Al
Well,
Spader in this whole crazy
the
world?
month of February kind of was a wash because I've been really dealing with Klingon War
Mm.
stuff. So I kind of took the month off. I am in the middle of Once Upon, which is a fairy tale role playing game with a D12 pool system that I've
Mm.
created.
Oh wow!
And yeah, we've been doing a lot of play testing with that. I got to play test at the con that I went to this past weekend.
Oh
I'm
nice.
hoping that that'll be done by the end of April. And then I want to do a sentience like world guide,
Oh,
almost like a
yeah.
big world development book that might eventually get put into the core rule book as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I had another person approach me at the convention saying, "Hey, I've got this idea for an adventure for sentience. Are you going to do another adventure
Oh,
collection?" And
sweet.
I was like, okay, if I can get people interested, I'll absolutely do another one.
Oh, good. Oh, so are you having a Jim Johnson open door policy of accepting adventure submissions for sentience?
Always,
Oh,
yes. Yeah, I mean, so like the first collection, there's four adventures. I wrote one, and then the three others were people who have never been published in the RPG world before.
oh, I didn't know
Um,
that.
but they were interested in becoming part of it.
Yeah.
So basically, I kind of guided them through the system,
Mm.
guided them through how the adventures would work. They'd send me their rough draft, and I'd send them back with notes, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, so maybe we'll get another compendium at some point. We'll see.
Oh, that's good. Well, I hope so. I hope so because, like I said, I love the setting. I thought sentience is such a brilliant idea, and we talked last time how much I love AI stories and that whole like becoming self-aware technology. That is one of my favorite things. So the bigger sentience gets, the happier I'll be, and I'm sure you'll probably be happy as well if I'm reading
Oh,
the room
absolutely.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm proud
Oh,
of it. And Tabletop Journeys just did a
oh
pretty
yeah.
big review on it. So that was they actually got to do a
Oh
live play,
yeah.
and then they did their review post that, which was very, very cool to hear.
Yeah, I saw the post on Facebook. I'm glad you said that. I saw that post, but I didn't have a chance to watch it, and it slipped my mind. So I'm going to go bookmark it as soon as we're done here because I did want to check that out. You also mentioned, I know we're running out of time soon, but just a little more casually here. You mentioned you got to be a player in Star Trek Adventures at the recent convention. How did that go? Do you get to
That
play
was it was
often? Do you get to be a player often?
no, I prefer to game master.
Same
So
here.
that let me be upfront about that. Like I'm one of those people that I love bringing people together
Mm-hmm.
and telling a story with them. So that is my preference.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I didn't realize I was going to be available for this con until after the submissions had closed for GMing, and I was like, all right, well, I know that Lee Wanika is running Star
Mm.
Trek Adventures. Let me see if there's a spot at his table, and there was, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm
Oh,
buying this ticket right now,
yeah.
and I'm gonna go play. Um, so yeah, so I got to sit down and we were playing one of Tony Pye's mission briefs from
Oh, cool.
the Starbase mission briefs.
Yeah.
So which I have not read through,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that like it was like the name of the adventure was like surgical something, and I was like, oh, all right. And there were two player characters that I could have been: the doctor or the scientist,
Mm.
who's like a geologist. And I'm like, surgical. That means that it's probably like a medical thing. And I was like, you know what? Here, have the doctor back. I'm going to play the scientist because I think it's more fun to show Star Trek Adventures flexibility
Yeah.
by showing the competence of everyone. And sure enough, by the end of the adventure, I was, a scientist with a two medicine helping a surgeon complete a major surgery. And everyone else at the table was like, wait, you can't do that. You're not trained in that. I'm like, oh, but I'm trained in handing, I know what the medical instruments are, right? I can assist in all these different things. I'm like, you are a highly trained individual in Star Trek. You should be competent at these things. And sure
Exactly.
enough,
Yeah.
I was able to succeed and help them finish the surgery. So that was eye opening to a lot of players at the table, which was cool.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And I just love the fact that you read the table, the other players, and you realize that while the medical character would probably make the most sense and put you in the right position for a story like that, the fact that you knew that for the sake of the other players you should take the opposite position that's available just to demonstrate what Star Trek Adventures is about. That just shows like such next level thinking on your part there. That is so good. Bravo to
Yeah, and
you.
then like the bad guys were coming to the star where the star base was part of an asteroid,
Mhm.
and so the bad guys were scanning and trying to find us. and I was like, hey, here's a suggestion. Why don't we just go dark, cut all power? Because they're all like arming themselves up with weapons and getting ready to defend against Jem'Hadar. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What if they don't ever find us in the first place?
Right?
They were like, wait, we can do that? And I was like, I mean, we can try.
That is awesome. That is great. Yeah, I'm like you. I prefer to be a game master, just in every system I play. But oh, it's Star Trek. I so want to play in the world at least once or twice, jump in and just be a character. So I envy that. I envy you. And I think I should reach out to Liwanika and see if he'll come on the show too. Because
oh, absolutely, he's a joy.
I've only spoken to him through social media, just post comments here and there, but I would love to actually talk to him one-on-one like this. So yeah, I'll reach out to him too, because I want to hear about his games, because I don't have enough time to actually go and explore his podcast and his stuff as much as I would like to. So that's great, you got to do that. So you had a good time? All the players, they got the gist of it?
It was awesome, and since then I've now booked myself for 3 more local cons.
Really?
Star Trek.
That's good. That is so nice. I wish I could do something like that here. That's just, that's not really a possibility where I'm at currently. But I'll see what happens. I'll try to take inspiration from you. I'll wear a bracelet that says, "What would Al do?" And
don't do that.
All right, well, I don't want to keep us too much longer, because you have donated your hour of time to me, and I don't want to push us too far beyond that. So as usual, where could anyone find you if they would like to get in touch with you about the Klingon Federation War Campaign, or about your Sentience game? Where's the best place they should find you?
Yeah, so GM_Admiral is my name on all the socials. You see, I'm heavily on the Facebook group. I try to act as much as I can in the Discord group. Or just reach out to me and send me a direct message. Like, I will respond to you as soon as I possibly can. With whatever information I can. I've had a lot of people texting me, messaging me about the tactical campaign and whatnot. So I'm open. I'm around. I'll try to assist you in any way that I can,
Well, that's good. And yeah, as you can see here watching the video, Al is just such a wonderful, nice, friendly, and very, very well-spoken person to talk to. So please don't hesitate, talk to him. I'm glad I did, and I'm glad you came back again, Al. I'm honored that you were not scared away after one time and you actually returned to talk with us. Thank you very much.
Well, hey, now I can say that we both write for Star Trek Adventures now. You're a published Star Trek Adventures out there, man.
I have one little tick. One little tick there. I don't know.
That's all it takes to start.
That's all it takes. So technically, yeah, we're both writers on Star Trek Adventure.
Hey, I started with the Anomalies mission brief and the Psychic Incursions mission brief, and now I'm a lead writer on a book. So like, it just shows, like, if you keep writing and doing your stuff, like, hit your deadlines, be a quick edit, all that stuff, you can certainly make your way in this cool world. Jim's pretty pretty open.
So. Yeah. Well, fingers crossed that I can try my hand at a few more things, but well deserved to you, because I mean, if anyone deserves it, I mean, you're just so wonderful, Al, and thank you again. Thank you for coming here. Get in touch with Al if you have any questions. Come talk with him on the social media, Facebook group, everything there. But I think that's all I have to say for now. Let me end this, and hopefully we'll be seeing Al again very, very soon back on this channel. So thanks for watching. Live long and prosper. Peace and long life. I'll see you.